So part 3 of our four-parter, it's really not different than the second part in that the right side is 0, the left side isn't factored. All the problems in this section, my goal is to get the left side factored, the right side 0. In this grouping of problems, all of the problems have common factors. And the important thing to remember from the first group of problems is common factors with an x give a solution of 0. And common factors with no x don't give a solution. And other than that, this is basically the same style of problem. One tip, if the problem needs to be factored and there's no parentheses, you usually expect to get as many solutions as the highest exponent. And the fundamental theorem of algebra basically says you can't get more solutions to a polynomial equation than the highest exponent. So for problem 44, I'm going to expect 3 solutions. I don't know if I'm going to check them. Maybe I'll just check one from this grouping of problems to keep the video reasonable. First step in all the problems between 43 and 60 is to pull out the common factor. And in problem 44, the common factor is 2x. I'm going to factor out a 2x and be left with 5x squared plus 9x plus 4. Already I can see the solution of 0 that's going to come up. I have my common factor with an x. I need to factor this by grouping, the 5x squared plus 9x plus 4. I'm going to multiply the 5 and 4 and get 20. I need to find numbers that multiply to that 20 that are plus plus, and they add to this 9. And that's just going to be 5 and 4, because 5 times 4 is 20. 5 plus 4 is 9. So I can rewrite inside the parentheses the 9x as 5x plus 4x. So I can rewrite this problem as the 2x and then make a big parenthesis setting up for 4 terms with a 5x squared plus 5x plus 4x plus 4. Still have the equal to 0, and now I'm going to parentheses, parentheses. Let me just work on this and kind of bring the 2x down, just to not keep writing that. So inside the parentheses, the first 5x squared plus 5x, I can factor out a 5x and be left with an x plus 1. The 4x plus 4, I could factor out a 4 and be left with an x plus 1. So the 2 parentheses I'm going to get are x plus 1 and 5x plus 4. Now that I have it factored, I'll set the insides of I'll set each factor equal to 0. The 2x factor, when I set it equal to 0, I divide by 2. That's a common factor with an x, so it gives a solution of 0. The x plus 1 factor, I'm going to minus 1 from both sides, and that'll give a solution of negative 1. The 5x plus 4 factor, if you can do it in your head, do it in your head. But to get the answer of negative 4/5, I minus 4 from both sides and get 5x equals to negative 4. And then I divide by 5, and get x equal to negative 4/5. I'll check them just because it's the first in a grouping of problems, but I believe the answer for 44 would be x equal to 0, negative 1, and negative 4/5. I'm going to check each into the original problem. First I'm going to check 0 by going 10 times 0 cubed plus 18 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0, and make sure that gives me a 0. After that, I'm going to check negative 1. I'm going to do 10 times negative 1 cubed plus 18 times negative 1 plus 8 times negative 1 make sure that results in 0. And then lastly, I'm going to do 10 times negative 4/5 cubed plus 18 times negative 4/5 plus 8 times negative 4/5, and make sure that comes out to 0. Super easy to do on my calculator, so I'll do it on my calculator. First row, 10 times 0 cubed, get out of the exponent, plus 18 times 0 plus 8 times 0. The only way my answer is right is if when I hit equals I get a 0. If I get something other than 0, that answer is not right. I get a 0, so that answer is right. Now let me go back and change the zeros to -1 to check the second line. So I've got the second line in, and oh, that gives me maybe an error. Let me make sure I did this right. So 10 times -1 cubed plus 18 times -1 plus 8 times -1. I have this random plus sign here. Let me see if I can get rid of it. I don't know what the heck's going on here. Let me hit enter again. Let me just enter this. I don't know what happened. So I tried to be slick, but my slickness maybe failed me. So 10 times -1 cubed plus 18 times -1. I forgot the squared. This is what happened. In the top one I forgot a squared, in this one I forgot a squared, in that one I forgot a squared. It turned out in the top one, forgetting the square didn't penalize me. Let me recheck this top one. Go 10 times 0 cubed plus 18 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0. I should get 0 like I want. Now I'm going to backtrack and change the zeros to -1. So if my calculator doesn't come back with a 0, something's going on. Either I've entered something wrong on my calculator or my answer is not right. So I have the -1s in, and now I get -8. Oh, because it should be 18 here. My lord. Apparently I did too many videos today. This should be 18 times -1 squared. Now it's fixed. And that gives me the 0 that I want. It's the right answer. I didn't make an algebra error, but I'm really flubbing with my calculator. Let me do the last one just by hand. 10 times, well, on my calculator, but not trying to be cute and trick, and just enter it one at a time, so maybe I don't make an error. So 10 times -4/5 cubed plus 18 times -4/5 squared plus 8 times -4/5. And my answer is only right if I come back with a 0, and I do. I don't know that I've checked everything up to your satisfaction, but I'm going to call that checked. Problem 46, first step in factoring is to pull out common factors. Common factors that don't have a number letter don't give a solution. In problem 46, I'm going to pull out my common factor of 3, and I'll be left with x squared plus 6x minus 7. This 3 is not going to give a solution. Well, if I try to check x equal to 3, it's not going to work. I'll show you that it doesn't work in a second. And I'm going to sight factor the x squared plus 6x minus 7. I'll split a couple of x's in my parentheses, and the numbers need to multiply to -7. They need to add, subtract to 6, and the big number needs to be plus, the small number needs to be minus. And the only choices I have are 7 and -1. 7 and -1, if you multiply them, they multiply to -7. If you add them, which is really subtracting, they subtract to 6. So my parentheses will get a +7 and a -1. The first factor doesn't give a solution because it doesn't have an x. The x plus 7, if I minus 7 from both sides, gives a -7. The x minus 1, if you add 1 to both sides, gives an x equal to 1. So my answer, I say it's going to be x equal to -7 and 1. And I just want to show you that 3 isn't a solution. If I plug 3 in for the x's, that's a common factor without an x. It doesn't give a solution. 0 is not going to be a solution. I'll show you that too, just in case you're wondering. 3 is definitely not a solution. If I do 3 times 3 squared plus 18 times 3 minus 2, minus 21, I get 60, and that equals to 0. Just in case you're wondering if 0 could be a solution, if I change the 3's to 0, that's checking 0 as a solution, and that also doesn't work. So I only should get 2 solutions because the highest exponent was 2, which I got, and common factors with an x give a solution of 0. Common factors are numbers without letters don't give solutions. (47) and 48 are friendly. The highest exponent is 2. I expect 2 solutions. For 48, I'm going to start off, I'm going to pull away the common factor of a 2 and be left with an x squared minus 9. I still have the equals to 0. The inside the parentheses is a square with a minus, so I'm going to divide the exponents by 2, and I'm going to square root the number to figure out what goes inside my 2 identical parentheses, except one with a plus, the other with a minus sign. So the factoring for 48, it's a square with a minus. I'll split the x evenly between the firsts, the 3 evenly between the lasts. The first factor of 2, since it doesn't have an x, it doesn't give a solution. The factor of x plus 3, it gives a solution of x equal to negative 3. The factor of x minus 3 gives a solution of x equal to 3. I'm going to write my answer. I only expect 2 answers when the highest exponent is 2. I actually can't get more answers than the highest exponent when you're solving a polynomial equation. I could write either x equal negative 3 and positive 3, or better, use the plus or minus symbol and write x equal plus or minus 3. Let's do 49 and 51 together. They factor the same way for the most part because they both have a 3 of negative 15 and an they don't have exactly the same crud. Let's change 51 to make them the same. And one of them may not factor. Let me just check real quickly. I can do something on my calculator. Mode 3, enter negative 15 equal positive 18 equals. Mode 5, 3 equals negative 15 equals negative 18 equals. No, they both would work. I'm going to change 51. I'm going to change this to a plus for us just to make these make the work easier because we've got a lot of work to get through. So in 49, which maybe you should pause the video and try to do it. In 49, I expect 3 solutions because the highest exponent is 3. There's going to be a common factor with an x, so 0 is going to be a solution. First step in 49 is I'm going to factor out the common factor of 3x. I'm going to divide the numbers by 3 and take an x away. Still need this x equal to 0. First term, when I divide by 3, the 3 is gone. It had 3 x's. I took 1 away. I'm left with 2 x's. I'm not factoring out a negative. I'm going to keep the minus sign. I'm going to go 15 divided by 3 and get 5. For the middle term, I had 2 x's. I took 1 away. And after the plus sign, I'm going to get a 6 because 18 divided by 3 is 6. I'm going to sight factor the x squared minus 5x plus 6. I'm going to split the x's between the parentheses, and I'm looking for double negative numbers that multiply to 6, double negative multiply to 6, and add to negative 5. And that's going to be negative 2 and negative 3. If I multiply negative 2 and negative 3, I get positive 6. And if I add negative 2 and negative 3, I get the negative 5. So one of my parentheses is going to get a negative 2. The other is going to get a negative 3. I have it completely factored. I'll set each of the factors equal to 0. First one is a common factor with an x. It gives a solution of 0. Hopefully you can figure out the solutions from the next 2 factors just by inspection without doing the algebra. So first factor, common factor with an x, gives a solution of 0. Second, I add 2 to both sides. I get a solution of 2. Third factor, I add 3 to both sides. I get a solution of 3. because the original problem's highest exponent is a, oh, I see what I did. Because the original exponent, the highest exponent, is a 3, then you should get 3 solutions. I'm going to have to change, it should be x equal to 2. I have to change that problem back that I changed. Now I understand why this problem wasn't the same, because it makes it confusing. Let me leave problem 51 where it was at, and let's solve 51 together. Problem 51, because the highest exponent is 2, I expect only to get 2 solutions. And common factors without an x don't give a solution, and that's what's going to happen here when I go through the factoring of the changed then unchanged version of 51. For 51, first step is to common factor out the common factor of a 3. When I do that, I don't have to flip any signs because I'm factoring out a positive. I get x squared minus 5x minus 6. And now I'm going to sight factor. I'm going to split that x squared up into the first part of both my parentheses. And my numbers need to be plus and minus. Small numbers plus, big numbers minus. They need to multiply to negative 6 and add, subtract to negative 5. And that's going to be 1 and negative 6, because 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. 1 plus negative 6 is the same as 1 minus 6, which is negative 5. So in my parentheses, I'm going to get a plus 1 and a minus 6. The first factor of 3, since it doesn't have an x, doesn't give a solution. 0 won't check as a solution, nor will 3 check as a solution. The factor of x plus 1, when you set it equal to 0, you would have to subtract 1 from both sides. It will give a solution of negative 1. The factor of x minus 6, to get the solution from it, you'd have to add 6 to both sides. It'll give a solution of x equal to 6. Because the original problem, its highest exponent is 2, I can't get more than 2 solutions. And that's what I got exactly. I got negative 1 and 6 for my answers for 51. Just a few more for this part 3 of the video, and then we'll have a part 4. I'm going to go ahead and do problem 54. The highest exponent is a 2, so I expect to get 2 solutions. I'm going to start off by pulling out the common factor of 7. 7 goes into 14, 35, and x. I'm going to pull out the common factor of 7. I'll divide 14 by 7 and get 2. I'll leave the x squared. 35 divided by 7 and get 5. I'll leave the x. 21 divided by 7 and get 3. Now I'm going to group factor the 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. I'll multiply the 2 and 3 and get 6. I need plus plus numbers that multiply to this 6 and add to that 5. And that's perfectly going to be 2 and 3, because 2 times 3 is 6 and 2 plus 3 is 5. So I'm going to rewrite the 5x as 2x plus 3x. So in my efforts to factor 2x squared plus 5x plus 3, I need to do it by grouping because of the 2 in front of the x squared. And I'm going to make it 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 3. Doing it kind of off to the side because sometimes it gets really clumsy if I jump everything together. I'm going to factor out my common factors. First parentheses, 2x is a common factor. I'm left with an x plus 1. Second parentheses, factor out a 3. I'm left with an x plus 1. This is going to give me x plus 1 times 2x plus 3 to put after the 7. So now I'm going to go 7 times x plus 1 times 2x plus 3 equal to 0. The common factor of 7, because it doesn't have an x, it doesn't give a solution. The factor of x plus 1, I can do that solution in my head. It gives me a solution of negative 1. the factor of 2x plus 3, if you could do it in your head, it gives a solution of negative 3 halves. If you can't, minus 3 from both sides. That will give me 2x equals to negative 3. And then divide by 2 on both sides, and that will give you the answer of negative 3/5. I should only get 2 solutions because the highest exponent was 2, and that's exactly what I got. So I'm going to write my answer and save a minute and not check it. I get negative 1 and negative 3/2. Just a few more to push through. I'll do 456 because it's structurally the same as 54, so the hard factoring is going to be the easy part because I'll have it done. The common factor that I need to deal with in 56, they all have the same 14, 35, and 21. I'm going to factor out a 7, but they all also have an x. I'm going to factor out an x to the first power. After I factor it out, the 7x, I'll divide the 14 by 7 and get 2. I had 3 x's, I took 1 x away, I'm left with 2 x's. Not changing any signs because I'm not factoring out a negative. The 35 I'll divide by 7 and get 5. I factored out 1x, I had 2 x's, I'm left with 1x. The 21 I'll divide by 7 and get positive 3, and I took the x away. Now I need to factor 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. I've just done that. So in place of that single parentheses, I'm going to put those 2 parentheses. So I'm going to do 7x times x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. And now I'm going to get my 3 answers. The first factor is a common factor with an x. It gives a solution of 0. To get that solution, the proper algebra is to divide both sides by 7. The factor of x plus 1 I have right above. That gives a solution of x equal to negative 1. And the factor of 2x plus 3 I have right above. That gives the solution of x equal negative 3/2. So because the original problem had the highest exponent of 3, I expected to get 3 solutions. And the answer to 56 is going to be x equal to 0, negative 8, negative 1, and negative 3/2. Just 2 more problems. Let's do 57 together. It's not particularly hard, and then maybe stop and end this grouping, and then we'll do a part 4. In 57, the highest exponent is 2, so I expect to get 2 solutions. Can't get more than 2 solutions. I need to factor this. The first term starts with a negative, so I'm going to GCF factor out a negative. And all the numbers are divisible by 2. I'll take a 2 with that negative. So the common factor is negative 2. I'll flip this negative sign to positive, divide by 2. The first term is going to be an x squared. Flip this positive sign to negative. I'll divide 10 by 2 and get a 5 and leave the x. Flip that positive sign to negative because I factored out a negative. Divide the 12 by 2 and get 6. Now I'm going to factor this, and I need numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add but really subtract to negative 5. And that's going to be 1 and negative 6 because 1 times negative 6 equals to negative 6, and 1 plus negative 6 is the same as 1 minus 6, which is negative 5. I'm not group factoring, I'm site factoring because there isn't a number in front of the x squared. So I'm going to make 2 parentheses up. One's going to be an x plus 1. The other's going to be an x minus 6. Yeah. Now that I have this factored, I'll go negative 2 equal to 0. That doesn't give a solution. Common factors without a letter don't give a solution. When I set the x plus 1 equal to 0, I'll get x equal to negative 1. When I set the x minus 6 equal to 0, I'll get x equal to 6. I expect to get 2 solutions, and that's exactly what I got. For 57, I'm going to say x equal negative 1 and x equal to 6. There's one more problem in this grouping. If you want to, give 59 a go. If not, I feel like we've kind of done enough of these, and we'll move on to a part 4 here in a bit where we do the bottom problems, which are a little bit different because they're not equal to 0. The not equal to 0 makes them a little bit harder, or a lot of it harder.